my gosh. Wait, close your eyes.
Okay.
Okay,
Color.
here I go.
Okay. Hi everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. It's been a while since I've done a dupe video, and today I'm going to be comparing a potential dupe for the Natasha Denona Retro palette, which is one of my favorite palettes that Natasha Denona has already made. If you're a fan of rosy tones, mauves, sparkly pink colors, I mean, you'll be a fan of this palette. But anyway, I received an eyeshadow palette in the mail from Alter Ego. It's brand new, it's called Harmony, and it's supposed to be a dupe for the Retro palette. So we're gonna test it out today. I've done several of these in the past. I'm gonna do one eye using the Alter Ego palette and the other eye with the Natasha Denona one so we can really see how they compare once applied. Here's what the palette looks like on the outside. The packaging is really nice. It has 15 shades. There's also a mirror in the top, which is really nice too. And here's what it looks like on the inside. You can see I've swatched them already, which I'll show you guys in just a second. But here's what it looks like on the inside, and I will show you side by side with the Natasha Denona palette. So you can see they're definitely similar, and this one is 1000% inspired by the Retro palette. So let me show you guys the swatches and then we'll get into trying it on. So here's everything swatched side by side. On the top row, I swatched the Natasha Denona Retro palette, and on the bottom row, I swatched the corresponding shades in the Alter Ego Harmony palette. Just by the swatches, you can see they're very similar, but also by swatching them, I now know there are some differences in the finishes of some of them, which I'll get into, but here is the comparison, and so far so good. I mean, it's a pretty close dupe already. So just for price comparison, the Natasha Denona Retro palette retails for $69, which is one of her more affordable palettes. I actually love this size of palette from Natasha Denona. The Alter Ego palette retails for $17. So that's a $52 price difference, at least in US dollars, which is pretty significant. So let's go ahead and see if the Alter Ego one performs as good as the Natasha Denona. I already did my brows off camera, and I'm gonna prime the eyes the exact same with my favorite eyeshadow primer from NARS. I'm just gonna apply that all over and then blend it out using my finger. I also try to always grab two of a similar brush or the exact brush if I have it, so that I don't double dip or cross-contaminate, so I can really see how both formulas perform. All right, let's start off in the Natasha Denona palette. I'm gonna start with the shade Nude Mauve as my transition. Just gonna use this on a fluffy brush and just sweep that in the crease. I'm gonna dip into Tender in the Alter Ego palette, which is the corresponding shade, and we're gonna do the same thing with the same brush, but a different one, on this eye, just sweeping it through the crease and a little bit above as my transition. Back to the Natasha palette, I'm gonna take the shade Andy, which is a really pretty mauve, and I'm gonna start building up the shade on the outer corner and then blending it into the crease. The shade that matches that in the Alter Ego palette is Nurture, so I'm gonna pick that up and do the exact same thing on the other eye. Now, this is one of her cream to powder formulas, which is a very, very unique formula in the Natasha Denona palettes. As I was swatching these, this is the formula that I noticed was not quite the same in the finish, actually. So the colors in the pan look very similar to each other, but once swatched, there's a lot more of a sheen in the Alter Ego one, so it's not quite identical. And you can see it has a little less pigment to it. I feel like I have to kind of dip in and work with it a little bit more. And that's the case with a lot of these dupe videos that I've created with Alter Ego, especially with purple shades. I think purples are hard to formulate in general. But this one is not quite looking as vibrant or as mauve as the other shade. So it's kind of proving what the swatches taught me. You're obviously gonna get a similar effect with this palette in general, but the cream to powder formulas are not exact dupes in my opinion. I don't know if you can see it kind of has more of a sheen to it, where this one is pretty like a soft matte. It's just more of a cream shadow feel. Yeah, you can definitely see the difference with that color. I'm gonna dip into the shade Amara in the Retro palette. I wanna start adding a little more depth to the outer edge. So I'm just gonna press this along the lash line and then a little bit in that outer corner to create a little more dimension right on top of where we just applied that first shade. I forgot how beautiful this color story is. I really love that palette. Now into the Alter Ego palette, the corresponding shade is Grace. And we're gonna do the same thing, kind of pressing this against the lash line first, and then bringing it into the crease. I feel like Alter Ego's matte and shimmer formulas, like metallic formulas, are usually very high quality and very buttery feeling, and they perform really nicely. They blend out really well. It's just the cream to powder formula that is not very comparable in my mind. So we're gonna go into, let's stick with the Alter Ego palette, and let's do the shade Chime. I'm gonna use this all over the lid, so I'm gonna take this on my fingertips. And when I swatched this, this was one of the most beautiful buttery formulas. So again, I feel like Alter Ego's shimmer shades and metallics are really, really nice. That's performing really beautifully. That shade was inspired by Helio from the Retro palette, so I'm gonna take that on my other finger and apply that to the center of the lid. Another trend I've noticed with these dupe videos is oftentimes the Alter Ego shimmers have a little bit more intensity than the Natasha Denona ones, just depending on the shade. I'm actually really excited to play with one of the more chunky glitter colors. So from the Alter Ego palette, we're gonna take the shade Charity, and I'm also going to apply that with my fingertip. This is a dupe for Psychedelic, which is my personal favorite shade in the Natasha Denona Retro palette. So I'm excited to see how these compare specifically. I'm gonna take this on the inner portion and just press that onto the lid to really give it a gorgeous glittery effect. I mean, that's applying really nicely. I love the kind of blue reflex in this color. It's a really special shade. So again, that matches Psychedelic in this palette, so we're gonna do the same thing. Just pressing that all over the lid. When I swatched these next to each other, they looked pretty close, like they were very, very similar. So I'm excited to see how they look next to each other on the eyes. It's so interesting because this one looks more intense, more reflective, a little more chunky in a way versus the Natasha Denona one. So you can see there's like pros and cons so far. I feel like the Alter Ego really does make up for the lack in the cream to powder formula in the shimmers, at least so far. I'm gonna use the shade Scent, which is a really pretty kind of purpley matte shade. And I'm gonna use that as a shadow liner on the outer edge of the eye. Switching brushes and palettes, the corresponding shade is Groove in the Natasha Denona palette, so I'm gonna take that and do the same thing on the other eye. That color is definitely a little more intense in the Natasha Denona palette, so I'm gonna build up Scents a little bit more on this side to try to match the intensity. All right, I'm gonna wipe away any fallout under the eye. Honestly, there's not much on either. I would say they're about the same with fallout. All right, I'm going to pop on some mascara. I'm gonna use my Makeup Forever mascara today, which is like the two-step one. I'm just gonna use the same mascara on both eyes. So I'm gonna hurry up and do this. I'm gonna move on to my base, and then we'll finish up the lower lash line and see how they compare. And then my favorite part, my husband always comes down and tries to guess which palette is $69 and which palette is $17. So stay tuned. I'll be right back for the lower lash line. All right, so I've got the rest of my makeup on, even down to the lip color. If you wanna know what else is on my face, I'll have it linked down below. Let's finish up the lower lash line and then we'll compare both. I'm gonna dip into the shade Tender and just take this across the entire lower lash line to start to define it. We're gonna use Nude Mauve from the Retro palette to do the exact same thing on the other eye. I'm gonna take the shade Helio and I'm gonna spray the brush with setting spray just to avoid fallout. I'm going to apply that across the lower lash line as well. And we're gonna dip into Chime on the other palette. And I'm gonna spray this brush as well and do the same exact thing across this lower lash line. I'm gonna take a little bit of Nurture, which is that cream to powder color, on a fluffier brush, and I'm gonna pinch the brush and just use this right underneath the shimmer shade to buff that out a little bit more, just like that. The corresponding shade in the Retro palette is Andy. So on a clean brush, I'm gonna do the same thing to the other eye. Okay, I think that's all that I can do without it looking too crazy. I always try to use as many shades as I possibly can, but sometimes, you know, I don't want to overdo it. So we're gonna go ahead and apply mascara to the lower lashes. I'm gonna take my fingertip and dip into Chorus, which is like a kind of golden pink color. And I'm gonna use that as the inner corner highlight. I'm just gonna kind of press that into the inner corner to add a little sparkle. And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the other finger, taking the shade Glitz and applying that to the other inner corner to add a little highlight. Since those two shades were a little glittery, I'm just gonna take a powder brush and kind of dust away any fallout. All right, finishing touches on the look. I'm gonna take my One Size Beauty On Till Dawn setting spray. I tried this out again last night and my makeup did not budge, so I wanna give it another go today and see if it was just my imagination or if this is like hairspray for the face, so. Spraying that everywhere. And of course, I'm going to press that down with a sponge, just adding a bit more blush, and then we will set the brows using my Milani Clear Brow Gel, and then I'm gonna give my husband a call for him to guess which eye is which. Honestly, once they're applied, they're so similar. Like I could go out like this and nobody would think that they're two different palettes. To me, there are differences, which I will get into after my husband guesses, but I don't know if the differences are enough to make me complain about the price difference, if that makes sense. All right, let's see what Tylen has to say.
Hi, Sugar.
Sugar, you know what time it is, Sugar?
Okay.
It's time for your debut. All right.
Wow.
Wow, it's been a while, huh?
I know.
Oh, alrighty. Say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody.
There's Tai Tai. All right.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Wait, close your eyes.
Okay.
Well, am I crazy or does this feel like the closest match I've ever seen?
Some of the shades are pretty close. There's some that are not, in my opinion, but it's because of the formula more than the color.
Here I go.
Okay.
Natasha Denona.
Yeah. How do you know every time? You get it right every time. What makes you think, what makes you...
The glitter is so smooth.
It's smooth, more smoother.
And there's no fallout.
Oh, well, there was a little fallout on both, but...
Close them.
Maybe there's more fallout on the other one?
Turn a little. Turn the other way. I don't know.
They're pretty close though, the shimmers. Don't you think?
The shimmers are very close.
Like, and it's the same as last time where I feel like Alter Ego does good shimmers. Like they're really intense.
I mean, honestly, it was just a good guess on my part.
But I'm not even mad about it and I wouldn't be embarrassed going out. Nobody's gonna know.
Wow.
Thanks for participating. Alrighty, love ya. Well, he guessed right again. He's always right. Every single video. So what do you guys think? I want to hear in the comments down below. The Alter Ego or Natasha Denona, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about dupe palettes in general? Is it something that you appreciate or is it something that you kind of are not a fan of? I would love to hear in the comments down below because I know that it's kind of like a controversial topic sometimes. For me, I'm on the fence as well. I feel like it just depends on your situation. Obviously, as a makeup lover, I will always say to invest in the creativity and the inspiration behind the original of any dupe out there, but I know that some people just don't want to spend $69 on eyeshadow, which I totally get. It just depends on your preference and your priorities and what you want to spend your money on. So in that case, I do feel like it's nice to be able to have a much more affordable option to be able to achieve a very similar, if not identical look to high-end palettes and products without feeling like it's costing you your rent. You know what I mean? There's a balance. So overall today, I feel like I have a pretty solid opinion. I would say, again, according to the swatches and playing around with them, the Alter Ego palette definitely does not dupe the cream to powder formula from Natasha Denona very well. To me, they're pretty different. So that's the only thing that's just like, not quite. Like Natasha Denona cream to powder formula, it's so unique and so luxurious. It blends out beautifully and it's just quite different, honestly. But when it comes to the mattes, the shimmers, and the sparkly colors, you really can't tell a difference. And I feel like the quality is there in the Alter Ego one. So like I said, I feel like it makes up for the cream to powder difference with the shimmers, mattes, and metallics. If you want to see any of my other Alter Ego dupe videos, I will have a couple of my more recent ones linked down below. So yeah, overall, besides the cream to powder formula, I do feel like this is a good palette. The cream to powder formula in this palette does perform, it's just different. It has more of a shimmer or like a sheen underneath it. So just keep that in mind, but sometimes it's fun to test out the color scheme to see if you really like the colors or if it flatters you before investing in the large one. A lot of times too, I will travel with my Alter Ego versus the original because the Natasha Denona eyeshadow formula can sometimes be pretty soft. So if I'm going on a long trip and I just don't want to risk breaking any of these shadows, I will pack the dupe one to get the same effect without risking everything. So that's something that I like to do sometimes with my dupe palettes. I also have a code with Alter Ego if you want to save even more on your order, so I will have that in the description box down below. This video is not sponsored by them. I've had a code with them for a while, so if you want 10% off, you can just use the code Allie at checkout and you'll save even more. But yeah, tell me in the comments, which side do you like better? Do you feel like it was quite a difference, or do you see similarities like I do? And what are your overall thoughts? I can't wait to read your comments. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have not yet joined the family, you can do so by hitting the subscribe button. I would love for you to subscribe and then hit the notification bell so that you know every single time I post a video. And yeah, I hope you guys found this video helpful. I feel very cute in this makeup. And again, if you want to know any other thing that's on my face, I'll have it in the description box down below. I hope you guys have an amazing day wherever you are, and I will see you in my next video. Love you. Bye.